The US economy is sinking once again. No chance to reverse course without a major change. With the same issues occurring over and over, we have a good track record to use as our knowledge base. There is more anticipation of easy monetary policies overreacting to events and a liberalized viewpoint on corporate handouts. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to talk about real estate, we're going to talk about the GDP, and various issues today, beginning with this. Multifamily construction is at record highs, something that has been, in recent years obviously escalating, but the trend is there. More condos going up in your cities, reaching sky high. They're getting higher and higher, filling them with more and more people. This puts more of a burden on the infrastructure in the area. So you have more people, more cars, you have tighter spaces for people, and you can see that the condos are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, just packing more people in. And you know exactly what this is all about. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, where you try to get people to basically condense down into these mega cities, and then you have the ability to shut off infrastructure in between the mega cities, so making it more and more difficult for people to sort of sprawl outward and have them build inward into these mega cities and have them go sky high. But anyway, what I see with this is that it's such a burden, such a very big problem. I see this in Toronto, where you have the subway system, the metro system, operating way beyond its capacity now. Then you look and there are cranes everywhere in the skyline. The whole downtown Toronto is going to be a completely different picture in a 10-year time frame. So I'm sure that it is for all other cities, that you see this with your own eyes. I'd like, of course, to hear your personal insight where you live as well. And it doesn't look good for the future because this isn't necessarily beneficial to do what they're doing. A lot of it is bought on speculation as well. Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers. We're looking specifically at the rent of primary residence. And, like everything else, for the most part, because of the Federal Reserve, because of central banking, we see a rise. But this has gotten to the point where people have realized that everything has become unaffordable. You can't buy a home, it's too expensive. You can't rent the place you want because it's too expensive. That's what's going on right now. This is right out of the Federal Reserve's website. I want to show you a few others connected with that. This is the 3-month percent change rent of a primary residence in a US city on average, all urban consumers. So, where you have seen stagnation in the past few months, I would say that just like the rental rates, you can see that there has been an increase, okay? There are more people, and essentially what's happening is people can't afford homes, they have to rent. It's a simple matter of fact. The worse the economy gets, the more people have to rent. And also the prices at the same time, hold on to the thought about the prices. I'll show you in a moment. Rent growth has decelerated in recent months. You can see what's happening right here. However, let's be clear, and it's rising as well. This is the MF Rent Index, but it all connects into this. FAU Buy versus Rent Index shows record high home prices in the US being supported by rising rents. Now that is very interesting, and I see this firsthand. If you look at a lot of places where you have to factor in what you're going to pay per month. Okay, that's ultimately what people look at. What are my monthly expenses if I rent a place or if I, for example, lease a car versus financing a car? What does it come down to? And that is, what am I paying every month? And it's so absurd right now at this time that the rents in certain areas are so high that a lot of people say, look, I can get a mortgage. Sure, I'm not going to be able to pay it off for, 150 years, but at least I have this quote unquote home ownership, and I think it's a better idea than renting. But the prices just don't make sense. It's crazy in so many of the areas that I have seen. Record high home prices in the US market are being driven upward by rising rents in cities across the country, according to the latest national index. And that to me is not a good sign. There are some fundamentals which are off. You don't want to make it worthwhile for some people to buy a home when they really should be renting. That is not sustainable. And the S&P Case-Shiller Home Index, Price Index, found home prices at an all-time record, surpassing the highs before the financial crisis. Of course, there are pockets. But when you have to see, again, all-time highs, you have to start wondering, okay, is this legitimate? Should this be going in this direction? You have to question it. Doesn't mean that it's not going to break any highs. You don't want the S&P still at 500. You want it to be moving in the upward direction. You want to be new wealth to be created and that sort of thing to happen, but you don't want it to be unjustified. So that's really what I see. And if you look at the real estate prices in many areas, the number one indicator for real estate price is how much the average person earns and how much the average home costs. That to me is the number one indicator. I talked about that in my first book. You have to know that. You have to calculate that for the city that you are either want to buy a house in for your own purposes or your property, real estate property purchases. Either way, you need to know what that ratio is at any given moment. It's very, very key. It's the most important, in fact. All right, GDP, the fakest statistic out there, one of them anyway, top 3. Look at it. I just brought this to you, I think it was just a couple days ago, and it was at 0.6 for the GDPNow forecast. Okay, so this is what they expect, and it is now at 0.5. It declined even further. This is what happens every single time. It starts off high, and as the time moves on, it goes down and down and down and down. And the same thing happens. Growth estimates, we are going to have 3% inflation next year. We are going to grow our GDP by 3%. These are the targets we have. We're going to achieve that. The Federal Reserve is going to work on our side. The government is going to create jobs and everything else. This is what we hear all the time, every month, every quarter, every year, and so on. And yet, every time they get revised downward, the only time it was higher than what they expected it to be was the introduction of Obamacare, and people got hell screwed over. This right here is when you know that the whole monetary system is a fraud. The US has problems beyond measure, something they can't dig themselves out of. But Japan, my goodness, this is the absolute failure. Look at Fukushima to determine that. But anyway, so Trump said, our currency is too strong, partly my fault. That was what he said. You see a decline, US data comes out, you see a decline. But versus the Japanese yen, I mean, this currency is literally, there's no value left to it at all. It's zero. This is, I would probably, and I say this with caution, maybe it's better to invest with the Venezuelan stock market or the currency than the Japanese, because the Japanese markets are ridiculous, completely owned now, completely owned by the government, by the central banks, getting in there, buying up everything. I mean, the largest shareholder for the top, I think it was 10 or 50 companies in Japan are owned by the government. How can that be sustainable? How is that a plan? Oh, don't worry about it. We'll just print up some money and we'll buy up all the shares. Eventually, somebody will want to buy them and then we'll sell them to them. That doesn't work. Okay, that has never worked, and now you are holding on to more garbage than you know what to do with, but you can't admit defeat, and so you're going to crash and burn. It's going to be painful. Let's move on with this. Retail sales month over month. So we're seeing a little trend forming. It's only 2 at this time, but there is 2, and that could continue. I don't know. Let's see. But you don't want to have retail sales when it's such a consumption-based economy. You do not want to ever see this in the red. Keep your eyes on it. It's down, a rather minimal amount at this time, but it doesn't matter. Any trend, you need to pay attention to it. Okay, 2 little things that I just wanted to show you. Down the drain, wastewater with the most cocaine. Cocaine found in wastewater in these European cities in 2016. And London, all my friends from London, congratulations, you win the grand prize. What is it? Cocaine in your water supply. If you want to get high on cocaine, you should go to London and you should have a sip. There's some other cities in here. If you're from one of these cities, congratulations as well. Cheers. All right, this is the NNSA, not to be confused with the NSA. That is the National Nuclear Security Administration. The Air Force completed its first B-61-12 Life Extension Program qualification flight test at the test range. It was a non-nuclear test assembly dropped from this Air Force base. And anyway, all I wanted to say with this is that this is all in response to what is occurring in North Korea at this time with Russia and with Syria, with China and everything else. They're saying we are preparing. They make it public. Look what we're doing. We are just as ready as you are. We're getting our guys ready, everything else. I don't know what's happening. I don't know, with Syria and with everything else in North Korea and everything. I hope that nothing here will occur. I've said this before. Just wanted to note once again that the sabers are rattling, and there's reason that we should express caution right now. We should be prepared. We don't have to wait for something bad to happen to be prepared. We need to have the essentials. What are the essentials? I'll tell you this right now. I'm planning on writing an ebook. It's probably going to be in the format of an ebook. It might be a paperback as well, but I think I want to keep this type of information on my website. I'm going to write a book. It's called The Money GPS Strategy, and the entire book is going to be devoted to being able to make income, to be able to become self-sufficient. So all the little tips, I gave a few tips in my latest book, Global Economic Collapse. In this book, it's not going to be a storybook. It's not going to be long and detailed and everything else. It's just going to be fact after fact after fact. You're just going to get so much information, all these ideas, ways to make money now, ways to make money when the economy is terrible, ways to make money off of the things that you are already doing today. And this is the way that we need to see ourselves in the future. Look, if you lose your job tomorrow and the economy is really terrible, nobody's hiring, what do you do? In fact, I've been contacted countless times over these years. I've been doing this channel since 2011. Over the years, hearing from so many people, so many poor souls that are hurting right now, and they don't know what to do because they've been in that job for 20 years and suddenly, their job is gone. So this ebook or book or whatever it is going to be something that every single person can use the strategies within it, and it's going to be the detail that I've been just outlining exactly what's going to be in it. I haven't worked out all made it all pretty, let's say, but I've just been putting the ideas down, and there's going to be so much in here. I promise you, this is something that somebody shouldn't say unless they truly believe it. There is more information, solid information in this book than you have ever seen in any other book before. And that is something that everybody's going to be interested in, because as the economy gets worse, unfortunately, people lose their jobs, and they're going to be seeking ways of alternative income in ways that are legitimate and everything else. So I'm going to do my part to make sure that individuals are getting up on that. So it's going to take me a little while. So, you know how it works on here. It took me 5 years to release the last book, but I promise it's not going to take me that long for this one. That's why I want to make it more of an ebook and try not to put the historical analysis on it. I've already done that in the other books. There's the history, there's the foundation. Those books have it. So in this one, it's literally just a barrage of information, and people already, I've given little tidbits to individuals, and they've been they were just dying for this book to come out. So that's all. Enough ranting. If you found the video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I want to hear your thoughts about the Money GPS Strategy ebook that's coming out. I don't want to give too many details about it, but as time goes on, I'm also working on another ebook, top secret for now. So there's a lot coming out from here, and I want to do my part to be able to help people. Essentially, that's really what I'm doing. I do the daily videos, but now I'm trying to form a way that almost like a school, but actually that teaches you stuff instead of just tries to teach children inappropriate content. I'll leave it at that. Inappropriate content when they're way too young to know about it, and everything else that goes on. The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, that book, incredible book. But anyway, if you appreciate what I do, please give me a thumbs up. I want to know what you think about the Money GPS Strategy book. And last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. The first book talks about the 4 asset classes. You got the history, you have how to profit from it. Most importantly, each asset class has its own chapter, just breaking it all down. The new book is a little different, touches on the familiar subjects, but then you get into things like becoming self-sufficient, how to reduce your monthly expenses, and ideas I promise you nobody talks about. I don't know why. I don't know if they think that they're going to keep all the good information to themselves. My idea is give out as much information as I possibly can. If I know something, I assure you, I'm either wrote it in one of my books or it's in one of my videos and spread out through the 1,000 videos that I have. I assure you, I'm trying to bring out everything I can. I hope you appreciate that. You get the sense that some of them, and I guess this is the rant GPS today, but from some individuals, you read this book, the title is great, the back is great, you're just so excited to read it, and the book builds up and builds up and builds up, and then in the end, you realize, you only got like one good fact out of the whole thing. And I mean, it might have been really good fact, but it's like, I just read that whole 200-300 page book and I only learned that one thing. I should be learning every single sentence. And of course, that's really what I try to do with my books here. But these ebooks that I'm creating is going to be like specific topics, like more specific. These ones are books, and they just get into like all these sort of different topics, trying to just spread seeds, trying to give you ideas and ways to become self-sufficient, for example. These next books are going to be like super condensed. They are going to be just mind-blowing. I assure you. I just hyped it up still way too much, but I just hope you appreciate that. And I want to know if you're interested in that. Take care.